Hello, everybody. Welcome to the final day of the Chennai Storytelling Festival. You know, it is, I can't call it final because it has built the tempo and it has brought us to a crescendo. Looking forward to the next year's festival, as always, Eric. And let me first introduce myself. I'm Lavanya Srinivas. I'm a storyteller. I'm a guest faculty at the National Institute of Fashion Technology, Chennai campus. I've been teaching storytelling and narratives and conducting workshops, storytelling for articulating the design process and heal the self to heal the world, so many things. As storytellers, we all know that we are jack of all trades and master of none. Yeah, excuse me for that video interruption. Yeah,
that's okay. And
yeah,
please tell us about the festival that you direct.
Yes, and today please join us in the evening where Eric has very wonderfully given space to every storyteller to showcase their own interests and their own languages, because as we all know, every country has a wonderful culture, and India, with its multilingual and multicultural diversity, has a large scope. And we are essentially located in India, and we have the advantage of being with Eric at Chennai. So the very next year, I think, after Eric started his Chennai Storytelling Festival as a director, curating the festival, I jumped in. I said, my mother tongue is Telugu, Eric. So I would like to bring in storytelling from my mother tongue. And there are so many stories there. And of course, then we brought in, and then Sudha was there curating the Tamil storytelling. And COVID-19 indeed had a silver lining. We all could meet, yeah, breaking boundaries, going beyond the physical and geographical boundaries. We are all here. The community has become larger and the resources have become much, much more. And the story energy that is, filling the universe has become much more vital, much more energetic, and much more joyful. So thank you, Eric. And this evening, this is the second edition of storytelling in different languages of India. First, we got about 22 languages last year with different dialects, strong dialects of Indian languages, which were almost considered a language, which had a very distinct beauty. As we all know, we focus on the oral storytelling art and how does the power of words help us, whether they are spoken or written. So I brought in Sanskrit as well. And this year, it gives me great pleasure to tell you all that we have brought in the sign language. We are going back to the universe, right? It doesn't require any language. So I have brilliant sign language experts and storytellers who would be joining me this evening to showcase their stories in the language that they speak and the language that we all speak and the language that was spoken much, much, much earlier, thousands of years ago, even before language was born, how the cavemen, spoke, and they had gestures telling their adventures, their heroism, and things like that. So I wouldn't be taking more of my time and your time too, but I have a few suggestions to you and requests as well. It's always my, way of doing things, because I would like to hold you responsible for the success of this workshop. In the sense, I would like it to be an interactive one. How boring would it be to just listen to one voice, blah, 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 the same old stuff, same old voice, the stuff might change. So I look forward with as much eagerness to listen to all of you. So please feel free to interact, to raise your hand, either when we request or when you have something to share with us. And thank you, Eric, for giving me this opportunity, because even the pre-COVID days, we used to present workshops. And in fact, we had academic papers on storytelling at different colleges and universities. Yes, Eric, we have had those as well. So it's been a wonderful journey for me as a Chennai storyteller, and as a part of the Chennai Storytelling Festival. It has been a wonderful experience. And just to drop another context, I have known Eric since 2009. That was long, long ago, right? So yeah, that's another story for a different day. Now, as I said, let us all remember and realize that we are the stakeholders in this workshop, because each one of us have experience, each one of us has a passion, each one of us has a wonderful treasure trove, be it teaching, be it training, be it therapy, you name it. And we have got people who have been working in different fields. Thanks to Eric, he has brought them all, and you have been here all along. So thank you for this wonderful journey. And as I set tone to this workshop, as I said, there are a few things that I may not like to go to a breakout room in the end, because what happens is breakout rooms do give us an opportunity to talk together, to discuss, to plan, and come back and showcase what we had taken in from this workshop at the beginning. So if we keep it for the end, I have seen most of the time we miss out on many eager storytellers wanting to present their ideas. So let us start off with this question. What is storytelling? Certainly not a rocket science. Yeah, I'm sure you all agree with me. Do you agree with me or not? Please, let's make it interactive. If you say yes, put up your hands. Yeah, just raise your hands. Okay. Yeah. Storytelling is not rocket science. Then what is it? Then what is storytelling? Is it an art? Is it a skill? Is it craft? And is it a science? So we have gathered here together to discuss, to share ideas. As Sudha, with her wonderful presentation, has told us how to look in our backyard for the stories, I'm here to tell you, how do we tell them? What do we tell was the previous workshop. And now how do we tell them? Yeah. So we can't take stories, as she spoke, that, real life and backyard and history around us, the heritage around us are wonderful tools to share stories, to conduct workshops, to conduct trails. But I do feel many times we do look into stories, books. Yeah, there have been the Grimm brothers, and for us Indians, the A.K. Ramanujam, who have all put together. And now with the storytelling, oral storytelling tradition, with the Renaissance, we have many, many more resources available online and offline, each one coming up with their own books. So in my storytelling course, I always, bring these kind of resources and the storybooks and stories that have been shared by people across countries and across India, of course. So coming back to the question, is storytelling an art? Is it craft? Is it a skill? Is it a science? So would anybody like to go in? Please raise your hand and share your idea. Yes, Barry, thank you.
I was going to say, let Bruce go. Go ahead, Bruce. He had his hand up.
Okay.
About the same time, but I was just going to say it's all of the above. It's really, I think, what we make it, and there are many facets to it, many approaches, and many ways to think about it, to deal with it, and shape it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the beauty of storytelling. It kind of opens the doors. It depends on, like, you go to an ocean, and how much water can you take from there? Are you carrying a cup or a spoon or a vessel or a huge tank over there to carry the water? Yeah. So how much and what kind always depends on us, our experience and our personalities. I have realized, more importantly, that stories come to us and we also keep going in search of them. It's a wonderful game that we keep playing, right? Okay. So anybody else? Yeah, Barry wanted to share his idea. Yeah, Barry.
Yeah, I was going to say it's an art form as we practice it, and certainly what Bruce said. But it's interesting too because the word storytelling is used, in so many other realms that filmmakers talk about they're telling stories, and online, gaming is all about telling stories, and journalism is all about telling stories. So it's really, on a certain level, as we practice it, it's an art form, and in a larger sense, it is the currency of human communication. It's how we connect with each other through stories.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that wonderful idea, which has helped me to lead my workshop in a particular direction. Both of you have helped me. So anybody else? Just one more idea, and then, yeah. Okay, so we will just wait for just 1 second for the last hand to go up. Oh, okay. So, sorry, can you see my image, Eric?
I cannot see your image.
Yeah, now you can see me, right?
No.
So what has happened?
Are you doing a screen share?
No, I'm not. Please put me on. Yeah,
No, we can see you.
Okay, that's fine. That is perfect. I
Yeah,
just want to
I've
be
made
with
you co-host, so you should be able to do a screen share. Or if you like,
I
send
wouldn't. No, Eric, no need to screen share. I will just be here as a storyteller on the screen. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So this leads us to this wonderful answer, where, as Barry said, and earlier also Bruce Marcus has said that it opens avenues. It's not one kind that you can slot storytelling into. So it is all about, first let us consider ourselves artists, because as Barry rightly said, oral storytelling is first a performing art. It's a live art where you are telling a story and the listener is listening to you there. And as you mentioned, Barry, storytelling is being used very liberally in many fields, and we storytellers are very happy about it. In films, in gaming, in every area, it's become the buzzword now, and it's become the very popular skill, the 21st century skill. It makes us very, very happy. But we should first realize as storytellers that storytelling is a live art. You may not be performing with some music or one storytelling performance, drama, dance, and all that. Just with your words, what you can do. It is an art, because when you are performing with the spoken word, you may be just reading it out of a book, but your story, your voice lends so much to the story, to the performance, right? So how are we going to look at it as an art? And what is the role of art? And another beautiful thing that we should realize as oral storytellers, let us first, pat our backs and put a crown on our heads, because it helps us to be happy and share the space here together. So as storytellers, unlike painters or sculptors. And let me tell you, I cannot draw for a penny. I cannot sculpt. But then, these are different crafts and skills. But what we are doing is an active live performance where there is beautiful interaction between the storyteller and the listener. And the storyteller's performance keeps changing. The dynamics are changing depending on the listener. So somewhere along the way, it is not just the storyteller who is in the story. It's the listener, one or hundreds or thousands. It's all the listeners together. And it is this wonderful moment that is called Rasanubhava in the Indian text, literary text. We call it Rasanubhava or the cathartic effect, where the storyteller, the story listener, and the story, meaning the characters in the story, come and merge together. And that is the aha moment. Yeah, that is the aha moment we have achieved as storytellers. So let's look at storytelling as an art form.
And I just want to ask,
Yeah.
the title of this workshop is Redesign Your Story
Yes.
from
Yeah.
Page to Performance. So
Yes.
are you especially thinking about finding a story in a written source and developing it, transforming it for storytelling?
Yes, Eric. So before that, I felt it was very important to define what is storytelling. So having set that context, that storytelling, let us look at it as an art. And of course, there is skill involved, there is craft involved. And earlier I told you it's not rocket science, but there is a science behind it. We will go into it slowly. But here I would like each one of you, if you prefer breakout rooms, Eric, it's pretty early, but I would prefer a breakout room for people who would like to go there. But let me just tell a few things that we are going to look at the common points. So where do we get stories? In storybooks, of course, but mythology, yeah, itihas, that is the history. And then we get some educational stories, and we have folklore, the immense treasure, the wonderful treasure of each country. And then we have the lores, the famous local heroes, all of them, and they have been luckily scripted. They are available as stories, or we script them. That's also a part of this workshop. Okay, so how do we choose our story? Here, as a small tool, I will tell you, let's go through the typical 5 W's. What is the story you're going to tell? When are you going to tell the story? And then where are you going to tell the story? How are you telling the story? And to whom are you telling the story? These stories would help us because it is very important to look into the story. Many times in our storytelling community or in the classrooms or in my training sessions, people come and ask, where do we find these stories? I don't know. These are all known already. And I don't have any new stories. So my dear friends, we don't have to look at new stories because we again stop and see what is storytelling. Is it telling a story? Or is there anything to it, more or less or something? So before we go into the breakout rooms, I would like one more round of answers where you can raise your hand and tell me whether telling a story and storytelling are one and the same. Yes? Okay. Suppose you feel, no, it is not. Then what is it? Do you have a point to add there? Yeah. So I can see Veena coming on to the screen. Welcome, Veena. Yeah. So can you help me with your idea, sharing your idea? As I already told you, this is an interactive workshop where both of us, are equal stakeholders in this, the audience and the workshop facilitator. So over to you, Veena, if you feel like it.
Sorry, I just joined late. The
Oh,
question again, please.
yeah. What is storytelling? Is it telling a story? Yeah. Or is there more to it or less to it? And how do you define it, or what have you discovered, and how do you feel about it? Would you like to share? While Veena is perhaps, thinking, if you're ready, you can.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm sure you are ready as a seasoned storyteller.
There
Yeah.
are lots of prominent storytellers here, but it's lovely to be part of everybody once again and always learn from each other. What is storytelling? Very interesting. If you add storytelling elements into it, and knowing, I mean, I come from the Indian culture, but having traveled to many places, there are lots of storytelling elements that we can add and make a story, a very simple story, very interesting one, if we add few features into it. So it's either your voice or your actions. I do a lot of work with the government school children where they just think of a story as, well, it's just read. So reading a story and telling a story, ma'am, we like your actions or your voice, or some artifacts that you can bring in, or some pictures to show and things like that. So I think you need to have a blend of whatever you can and what your personality can do to the storytelling. Thank you.
Perfect, Veena. So you have nailed it. You and anybody else, a quick one more hand I would like to look. Otherwise, we will. Okay. So what I would like to say is, yeah, anybody? Okay, maybe taking it a little easy, let it, warm up a bit. So telling a story, as Veena rightly said, it is trapped in a page. So we are looking at such stories today. How do we take the trapped stories? Because as children or as teachers or as trainers, everyone has this problem. As parents, as grandparents, they all do it. They know it. They tell stories so beautifully. But then there are certain elements that you rightly said. What are the principles of storytelling? What are the elements of storytelling? So the famous story arc, yeah? So let us remember that as one point. And before that, as Eric has also said, how do we tell stories to different kinds of audience? Yeah. So that is the idea, learning from each other's experience, each of us ideas. And so when you take the story from the page, you have to tell it, because that is a written word. And as storytellers, oral storytellers, our tool or art is the spoken word. And there is a difference between the written word and the spoken word, right? So that would be the first point that we would be looking at. So, yeah. So the first point, you have set the thing, story arc. As Eric said, there is a beginning, there is a middle, and there is an end to every story. But is that all? That makes it a creative writing piece, that makes it an essay, that makes it a news item. But what and how is it different from a story? It's my favorite, way of saying it, that when you look at a story with a beginning, middle, and end, and go about it, it's the easiest way to arrive at the story, build your story, and jump into it. Yes. But what do we do next? It's all about realizing, as you tell the story, we realize that when we have a beginning, middle, and end, it's just a straight line. And what does a straight line mean? For me, the ECG is like storytelling. The ups and the downs and the ups and the downs, the lub-dub of the heart that beats. There is life in it. So the emotions, the drama, the dialogues, yeah, the twists and the turns. These are the beautiful ones that bring the storytelling element into our stories from the page. So the first idea that we need to put is, yes, there is a beginning, there is a middle, and there is an end. How do we look at it? The easiest tool would be the story arc. You have the characters, you have the course of the story unfolding, yeah? Sequence. Every day something happens, and this person behaves like that person behaves like that. And finally, one day, it doesn't happen that way. So that is the conflict. That is the problem area. What do you do? Oh my God. So we pause there. What is the conflict? We bring that. And obviously, conflict means there is a problem. And what do we do? If we have a problem, we need to solve it. And in stories, we solve them joyfully in different ways. So from the conflict, in the story arc, you go like this. You all know, I don't have to draw the graph and other things, just to help you, from the page, when you bring it on to the performance, let us imagine a stage. It need not necessarily be a stage which is raised. It can be a space in front of a community sitting together. It can be a classroom. It can be a library. It can be a temple place. It can be the beach road where I've been doing storytelling, car-free Sundays. So there are these beautiful spaces like parks. So anywhere, the center space is the stage for us. So from the page, you bring on to the stage. So in the stage, you look at the story arc as the first tool. We have come to the conflict. From the conflict to the move on to the solution. What is it? We look at reasonable and reasoning tools, whether this is possible, whether this is plausible. Is it, realistic? Has it happened before? With all these things, we suggest certain things. And voila, the solution is almost there. Just about to happen. The problem is being solved, but what happens? The villain comes. Yeah, there is a cliffhanger. There is some unexpected, huge obstacle, a monster who has come there. Imagine, because as storytellers, imagination is our foremost tool. And we are passing on our images into the brains of the listeners. Their images and imageries will be so beautifully different, same yet different, colored, very dynamic, very fluid, depending on their own interests and experiences. And children, they are the most beautiful, spontaneous engagement with the stories they have. So from the climax to critical thinking, we do almost arrive at the problem solving, but no, there is this climax, from conflict to climax. Climax, when I was young, I used to think that was the last scene. Then I realized that in climax, in movie theaters, or when you're at the edge of your seat, sitting like this. If you're reading a book, you're biting your nails. If you're listening to a storyteller, your shoulders come to the front, your eyes widen, your jaw drops, and your ears become more prominent. So you're all ears and eyes, waiting to gobble up whatever is being told. So that is the moment that storytelling creates. That's the magic. And as educators, we all know that is the moment for using it as a pedagogy, because learning happens at that moment. The curiosity, how does it happen? What is the question? And these questions like what, why, where, when, and how are the questions as listeners and as storytellers we use as the most important tools. So from it leads us to the climax, and there when everybody is listening, what do we need? Does logic, reasoning, thinking, critically, do these help us? No, no, no. A clear no. So what is going to help us? We very often hear people saying in corporates, think out of the box. Yeah. Think beyond. Think, I would say, think creatively. And what does creativity means? Thinking of all the weirdest possibilities. Don't look at logic, don't look at reasoning, don't look at whether this is possible or not. Or just put all the ideas over there. Have fun, enjoy, be a little crazy. Because as storytellers, we are all crazy, right? That's what brings the beauty into it. Yeah, a little bit of course, a lot of the story needs to be there. There needs to be sense, but there also needs to be fun, which we bring through this magical moments with a little bit of craziness for the audience. So from climax, we move on to the end that Eric was rightly mentioning. Every story needs to have an end. Yeah. It's another thing that we can start from there and go on and on and on. We see the famous TV serials and OTT shows and all of them. How do they, the serials, how do they, last for so many episodes? It's how you bring that one which is closed, how do you open it up for the next story? So that is called the closure. For this particular storyline of a beginning and a middle and an end, we are going through this thread, which helps us, but again, with thoughts, with emotions, with feelings, with behaviors, we are going to bring in that, giving those special, features to the characters in the story that we have read, which is right before us as a frozen story in a page. So I would like you all to go into breakout rooms, and those who do not want to keep your videos on, because Eric said when the participants do not have their video on, they cannot go into a breakout room. You can choose to do your own story. Choose a story, the folk tale that's common to all of us, or a folk tale, or a fairy tale, or a mythological story, or real life story. I leave it to you and your imagination, because as storytellers, we have used many, many stories, and the stories also choose us, like we have this famous saying, as man proposes and God disposes. The storyteller proposes, but the story chooses to come at that moment. Many times I experienced. I think, I plan, I practice a bit. I'm not much of a, regular looking at the time, practicing, which is very good, okay? But then I'm not the type, I'm more of a spontaneous person. So the advantage the story finds is that they can just go through me, rip into myself, and a different story comes all together there. So how do I manage that? Yes, it is from this page, but then it has its own weird imagination, weird things. So how do I navigate with that? So that's another story later on we will discuss. So I would like you to look at the story arc, and then the story elements of using the voice, the characters. How do we create our characters? What is the course of the story? How does the sequencing in the story, how does the story unfold? What is the critical part of it? What is the problem there? Conflict. So what is the climax and what is the closure? Just a simple thing to remember in C's. Every C you think of, and the story arc is there right in front of us. Using the story arc, I'm sure you can go much beyond. I leave it to you. Come up with your story and you can tell me after the breakout room. Perhaps for 5 minutes, Eric? 5 to 6 minutes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
they're going into breakout rooms, and each one is choosing a brief story and applying some of the ideas you mentioned to the telling of that story.
Yeah, yeah.
And to the discussion of that story.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have 18 people in the meeting, but only the 7 or 8 have the cameras on. If you'd like to go into a room and do this telling and listening, please turn on your camera now, or tell me that you cannot turn on your camera for bandwidth or other reasons, and I'll put you in a room anyway. Okay, so if nobody else appears, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we'll have 3 rooms with 2 people each. Okay, just give me
Oh,
a
wonderful.
second. Just give me a second to do this. Rooms. Actually, one more person left, so we'll have to put 3 people in one room.
Okay. And if they prefer to work alone, whoever can please start working with your story.
Oh, Madhu, good. Thank you, Madhu, for appearing. Uh, Madhu and
Shivani just came on.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm
Okay.
sure, yeah.
So let me just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so we'll go now. So the first thing when you get into a room, decide who's going to speak first to tell a brief story, and highlight some of the elements that Lavanya mentioned, and maybe have a little discussion, and then the second person will go after that. So I think altogether it's each person needs at least 4 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes. And it looks like one room is going to have 3 people. Okay, shall we send people? Shall we go? Lavanya, can I send them?
Yes, please. Yes, Eric.
Okay,
Yeah.
open all rooms.
Quickly choose a story. Yeah, and plan for the stage.
Rachel, I'm sending you into a room. Just 1 second. Okay. Okay, they're all gone.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, we have about 12 people watching and listening to us.
Yes, Eric, I think we can tell them to go with their story individually. Yeah. So they can show.
Well, go ahead, just address them, Lavanya.
Yeah.
There are 10 people there. Maybe you can suggest that they write notes to themselves. They
Yes,
just keep
let
it right
them,
internal.
yeah. And if we have time, we might call one person who's really waiting to tell the story. So please, for the others who have just joined or who prefer to go solo, not tandem, I would prefer that you work on your story. Pick up a story from a page that is a book, or whether written by you or anyone else, or a folk tale or a fairy tale or a mythological story, or the local legends. Just go and pick up your story and apply the story arc, which would help you to come up with this quick process of making the story, bringing it out of the page to the stage, and using the story elements. How and what do we switching on your camera means a lot to me.
So shall we close all the rooms now?
Yeah, I think if the 10 minutes is up, I think we should.
Well, we'll give them one more minute.
Okay.
Eric is very generous.
I know, I know. And you always require that one last minute, right? And
Right.
magic comes out of that moment, I'm sure. That one moment. He knows it. And as the saying goes, heroism is all about hanging on that 1 second longer. So as storytellers, just that 1 second longer you dwell into the story, into the page, and how does that come out onto the stage through the storyteller.
Okay, I'm closing the rooms.
Okay,
They'll
thank
be
you.
coming in 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. So we have 39 minutes to go in the workshop.
Oh, that's wonderful. So first, we will give an opportunity to the people who have been in the breakout rooms because they have helped the workshop to move in the right direction with the way we have planned. So how are we making use of the tools and both, the digital tools and the other tools? Yeah, every moment and everything is a learning for us, all eager to gulp it up. So over to you, the people in the breakout rooms, which group would like to go first? And please introduce your group with the other 2 or 3 tellers, the story you have chosen, and the way you have planned. Thank you.
Well, I will go first. Veena hasn't volunteered with me, but I'm going to speak for us. I was with Veena in a room when we had a lively conversation, and Veena talked about a story that she was telling to a group of 200 to 300 students.
Thanks.
And ways to get them engaged. And I'm Kalisana. No, you have to tell me the name again.
Selikana
Stelikana.
and the river goddess.
Yes.
Okay.
And it reminded me of a story that I know that I haven't told, but I use a picture book with it. But it was about, engaging the students and getting them involved. And then I talked about a story that I tell called Cato's Wall, an African folktale about a very rich man who uses his wealth to build a wall. And how it's not with 200 to 300 students, and I get students up on stage to become the characters, and then the characters turn into the wall, and I get volunteers in the audience to help out. So a lot of it is about, for me, dramatizing and getting students involved in various ways. And Veena seems to do a lot of that as well.
Wow. Thank you. And only 2 of you were there, and was there otherwise? Okay. So would you like to come up with a small bit of the story where we look at the performance? Because Babby, you said it's an art. Yes, and we do agree. And Veena as well, I'm sure, has been spinning tales in her own artistic way to the children, to all the NGOs and elders.
All right, I go. I'm a
bit
very,
of it, not-
very small person. Don't put me up on that big stage and big telling over there, but I enjoy what I do. I think it's more the passion and the energy that I get back from the children. So yeah, because they're government school children, it's a nice way of teaching them new words. So here is Selikana, and she was walking down the road and she was so pretty. She was dark skinned and she had beautiful hair tumbling down. So the tumbling down is a new word probably for them, which we probably use in English. Uske baal aise niche aa rahe the. You know, that's what we say as tumbling down. So a use of the local language is also important if I need to get to those children. They come from underprivileged or less privileged. So one is the use of local language. One is the use of actions, which many children have told me, ma'am, we like your actions. I said, probably that gets to them and that stays with them for a longer time. Also, I like to dramatize the story in using high voice in which she said that. Oh, she said, ikimatsu. So you bring down your voice and tone. And then that's when the children realize that you can have different tones. Thank you.
Wonderful. And Barry, would you like to go with a bit?
One moment, let me get my screen right.
Yeah.
And I might ask people to help me out with this so I can model just how I use students. And I might just call on you. And if you're willing, please join in. But it's the part where the people have asked Cato, who is very wealthy and has too much corn, if I get students to say, Cato, my husband broke his leg and we need some corn, or Cato, we had a flood and our corn didn't grow. And he says, no, it's my corn. And then he decides to build the wall out of the corn. And so he has, I'm trying to think, he has the women come and oh no, is that right? Oh, I'm thinking of the order. Anyway, I break it up. He has the boys come. And so I'll tell you what, Bruce, would you be the boys? And he has the boys cut down the corn. And so Bruce, would you go ahead and cut down the corn? That's, yeah. And I have a group of boys doing it. And then I say, the Cato says, work harder, cut harder, cut harder. Yes. And then he has the girls come and he has the girls ground the corn. And so Manjiri, would you please ground the corn? And Cato says, ground it harder. And boys, keep cutting. And then he has the women come and they add the water and shape the corn into the bricks. All right. And Jyoti Pandey, would you shape the corn meal into the bricks? Yes. And work harder. And then he has the men come and they put the bricks up on the wall. Rupa, would you do that? Put the bricks up and build the wall. Yeah. And I usually have 3 of each. So I have 12 students lined up and he tells them, and then I tell them stop. And then I have them all, you may stop, and I have them all, you don't have to do this, but I have them all turn around and put their arms up like this, and they face towards the back and they become the wall. And I have a student being Cato saying, giving them. So that's just an example of how.
Thank you, Barry. Like you said, it's an art. And as we discussed, storytelling is a live art, a participatory art. You're making it a participatory storytelling session where the audience become the characters. And that is how we all can merge the storyteller, the listener, and the story characters. How do they become one? So like Veena said, the physical description of the character, how she looks, what is the age and the voice. These are the tools, how do we bring in the drama, that little bit of dialogues, because storytelling is all about the narrative style and the dialogues, a good mix. So when do we use what and how do we use it and how much do we use it? So very beautifully, both of you have, showcased here, and we will move on to the next. Thank you, Barry and Veena, once again, for bringing in those elements that are required for making the storytelling live and artistic from the page to the stage. As I said, Veena, it doesn't have to be a huge stage. It can be the classroom, the community space, just next to sitting somebody, holding somebody's hand or looking into the little girl's eyes. It can be anything. You're the center stage. You're playing the center stage there. You're the performer. So put yourself on a pedestal and imagine your story and pass on the images. Yeah, next group, please. We had 3, so 1 is over. The second one. Yes, Bruce. Yeah, and Bruce actually started the participatory workshop, how he was, cutting the corn, and then you can see the pounding, and everything came so spontaneously. You don't tell them, you do this, you do that. The group, or just showing the hands, or no need. Yeah, Bruce, who was with you?
We were a 2-person
Uh-huh.
group. I was with Manjiri, and she told a story. It's very late here, and I was very happy to be a listener. And she told me a folk tale that she likes to tell to her granddaughter.
Okay.
And I said, pretend I'm your granddaughter and tell it to me the way you would tell it to her. And she did, and it was wonderful.
Okay.
So she told the tale of the lion and the mouse.
So beautiful. So you became the granddaughter there. Huh? While listening to her story.
I did.
Okay. So that's so beautiful. It helps us. Storytelling gives us that license to get into the characters. In the Indian tradition, we have something called Parakaya Pravesham. Para is others, Kayam is the body, Pravesham is to enter. So this gives us the license to get into other characters, imagine their roles, and behave like them. Thank you, Bruce. Yeah, you have anything else to add, or Manjari, your performance bit, perhaps?
Yes, I will do that. But first, just as we were to, before we came out of the breakout room, Bruce was going to tell about some poem. Then that we were interrupted, so maybe you could tell that poem.
No, we will go to the individuals later, Manjari.
Okay.
We are
Okay.
sticking to the breakout rooms first.
Okay.
After you, there is one more group, and then we will go to the individual.
Okay.
Solo storytelling. Now,
Okay.
this is tandem storytelling.
Okay. So usually, children like a lot of dramatization, not just reading from the book. So I would make different sounds for the lion and the mouse, and that way she would get very happy. And I'll just give you a little example.
Yeah.
The mouse came out of the hole and it was playing, and it saw a rock and it climbed on it. Oh, it was not a rock, it was a lion. The lion woke up and it caught the mouse and held it. Why did you disturb my sleep? Oh, lion, please leave me. I was just playing. I'm really scared. Please leave me. That's all. I just continued it in this manner.
So, yeah, wonderful. Making us realize, first taking us to the rock. The little mouse thought it was a rock and it climbed onto it. Oh my God, this is not a rock. It is a huge lion, and the roar of the lion you brought in so beautifully, the voice, using the voice of the character.
Mm-hmm.
And the squeaky little thing, the mouse, showing the contrast, the huge lion with its growl, with its roar. Yeah, so these are the elements, how you're using your voice and then the body language. Yeah, you brought in your hands to show how it is. So you don't have to have necessarily props. They can be beautiful illustrations like how Veena came up with that little girl, that picture. It told us all. Because characters have these 3 things, that there is a physical appearance and there is a characteristic which decides on the way, on the character's behavior through the story and what they stand for. And finally, the behavior of the characters. In that moment, how do they behave? Maybe they are very nice, very giving, very this thing. But how can you do this? Do you think I'm going to help you? Mm-hmm. So that moment, in which mood were they? And what did the little mouse, did it prick at the wrong place and, rub it on the wrong side for the lion to react like that? Or, whatever. So there has been a kind lion. It's like that. So look at the three descriptions that you would like to have for your characters and the reason for their behavior. So we spoke about the feelings, their psychology, and the situation. The situation actually unfolds and takes the story. The journey happens because the situation changes, the emotions change, the feelings change. Yeah, thank you so much for making us little children and listen to that beautiful story and the story elements of the characters, the voice, and the body language, yeah, and the combination of narration and dialogues. So you are a storyteller, you don't forget that. But you're the mouse, you're the lion, and you're also the little girl who's listening to the story sometimes. Yeah. So this is the beauty of storytelling. Thank you so much for bringing in your input. And Bruce, thanks for bringing the points that how you experienced it as a listener. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lavanya.
Yeah, and I can see as a listener how participatory you have been even in Barry's story. Yeah, so that is the charm and the joy and the energy of storytelling, that it makes everybody become a part of it. So over to the third group, the third and the final breakout room pair, tandem storytelling. Yeah. Who is it, please? Eric, are you there to help us? Hello, Rachel. Thanks for your presence here. I would like to appreciate and tell you that it means a lot.
Madhu was in the group, and she has gone off camera, and the other participant has gone off camera.
Oh, okay. So would you like to say a few words, or do we?
Well, okay. The story that I had in mind was about King Solomon. And King Solomon was the wisest Jewish king there ever was. His father, King David, had written poems to God and wanted to build a temple, but he had also sent people to war and had sinned. And King Solomon was supposed to be able to speak to animals and understand insects and had so much wisdom, but also had a kind and good character. Well, one day, two women appeared in front of him, and they both said, "This baby is mine." And each woman said, "It's not hers. She's stolen my baby. She wants my baby." And they said, "King Solomon, who should get the baby?" And the king turned around. Both women were crying and accusing the other one of having stolen the baby. And he said, "All right, I will cut the baby in half, and each of you can have half of a baby." And the first woman said, "Fine." And the second woman burst out into tears and said, "No, don't hurt the baby. Give the baby to the other woman." And the king said, "She is the real mother."
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Rachel.
But listening to Veena and Bruce and Manjiri, I realized that if I was in a classroom, what I would do would be to choose someone to be the king and to choose two girls to play the mother. And I would either have written the script, or we would have already I would have told them part of the script. And then I would, at a critical point, after the two women, the two students playing the women said, "This is my baby," and even perhaps have somebody play the baby, I would stop and I would say to the rest of the class, "What do you think the king should do?"
Yeah, absolutely.
And then when the king made his decision and said, "We cut the baby in half," And the first one would say, fine. I would turn to the class again and say, what do you think? And, or I would say, who do you think the king should choose afterwards? So that I would have more dramatization and more participation.
Yeah.
And that I only got after listening to everybody else in this workshop.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Rachel, for making this your story, both telling it as a demonstration and doing a bit of the workshop elements as well, bringing it in. Like, how would you make it? How do you help them play the role, play and role play? Yeah. So beautifully, you have used those two elements. You have said what you will do. And as storytellers, we always believe that we should never say moral of the story is that kind of seals it all, unfortunately. That is the beautiful, magical wand that opens, you know, the minds and the hearts of people, be it children or adults or whoever it is, and there are conversations happening. Like Barry rightly brought in the listeners as participatory audience, you brought in the students in the classroom environment. Thank you. And as a storyteller, I must thank you, because Eric always keeps telling us, I'm not a performer, I'm not a storyteller. But then he uses the power of the words, the voice. So how dramatically you use, or how do you just make those meaningful pauses, those pregnant pauses that are so, that leads you to the some kind of mystery, some suspense and some curiosity. So what did the king think about? What was his strategy to decide who the real mother was? So you used your voice to the best. And as storytellers, we all know that we need to have our voices loud and clear, and throw the voice to the audience in an aesthetic way, and make sure that it reaches the last in the, whether it's a 200 or a 2000 or a 20 or even 2 children. What is and who is our audience? Whether it has reached them, because oral storytelling is all about being audible and the clarity and using the right voice and the emotion that you bring into the voice. She has used pure storytelling, just the art of oral storytelling with the words, Rachel, because you said the way the first mother reacted, fine. She was so casual. She didn't care a damn about it because it was not her child. And the other woman said no. And just those 2-letter word of no, with the emotion, with the concern, with the love for the child, tells us who the real mother was. So if we think that storytelling is about words and visuals, we are right. But the visuals do not always need to be props and puppets and body language and drama or performance of music or dance or theater. Just using the voice with the intonation, with the power, with the silence, and with those little, these kind of small syllables, that will add so much drama. And the beautiful choice of vocabulary, because visuals and words, what do? They create that imageries, right? So I thank you very much. And I take a moment more here. We do give chance to the solo storytellers later, but I would just like to wrap up the points that I wanted to bring. How do we bring the story out of a page to the performance area? So choose your story, whether it is from whatever, or you have written it, scripted, fine, you have heard it somewhere. So you have it on the paper. And what do? We know the story arc, but we don't really go through the process consciously. Just bring the story into bare bones, right? What are the most important elements in the story without which the story cannot move, cannot unfold, cannot close? So just put those things. And then, the story arc would certainly help us to quickly slot them so that we don't miss the points. And there, after looking at the story arc with the characters, as I said, the three elements: physical description, the child with two, small plates, and what is the color of the skin, and whether she's wearing a frock or a, scanty little cloth to show that she's not really, rich enough to wear good clothes. So you can speak so much with that. So take care to describe your stories through their attire. Again, in our Natya Shastra, I would like to bring in the cultural aspect. Every tradition, every country has it. So there is something called Aharyam. Aharyam is the accessory of a dancer. In Natya Shastra, Bharata talks about it, and many other, Alankara Shastras have been mentioning this. So you have the physical attire, whichever language we may use, the Sanskrit or the Telugu or the English or Greek or Irish vocabulary, you name it. But it is the physical appearance of the characters, the Aharyam. Then the Abhinayam. Abhinayam is the expression, where you express through your eyes, the eye contact being the first thing. Are you looking at the audience? Because in the textbook, there are just words. In the page, there are just words thrown here and there. How do you bring them alive? You bring them alive through your eyes, through your mouth, through your words, through your gestures, through your intonation, through your voice. Yeah. So these are the elements. How, and then, as I said, every character, for instance, you take a lion, it's ferocious, it's the king of the, jungle. So what's the body language? But then the lion is also very helpful, and later on realizes, so the body becomes like this, and there is a softness in the face, and the voice drops, these kind of things. And then the, different things, how they play an important role, and how do we make storytelling feel like it is happening here and now? That is the trick. So you need words to bring in the narration and the dialogues. The narration takes you through that landscape, that time, that point of time that it has happened. And the dialogues bring you to the now. It makes you feel that it's happening here once again, right in front of you, and you're a part of it. We are all a part of that story there. So the right combination of narration, dialogues, and then how do we bring in all these elements into the characters, how it unfolds. As I said, unless we know what is going to happen next, the story arc will guide us. Otherwise, with the bare bones, we are stuck. For the characters, for the description of the face and the characters, where do they live? Bring through the narration, bring in the vocabulary, the jungle. The jungle, there were so many animals and beautiful greenery, but you could also hear those roars and the moo of the elephants and those and the beautiful proud peacock. They were all there. So how do you bring that ambience, that atmosphere with the help of your words, your vocabulary? And through the dialogues, those little bit of no, oh, no, not at all. So these kind of small words can make it very, very alive. And the final one, of course, with the characters comes the culture of the country, just by changing the location, the attire, as I said, the abhinaya, aharya. By changing that, you can take this tale, a folk tale from one country, and place it and transplant it to another country and make it so beautiful. But of course, you have to give the credit to the original tale and to the original culture. And sometimes in Cinderella and all that, I was really astonished to find out that Cinderella had so many different versions. We are all familiar with just one narrative, mostly. Yeah. So when you look into this Cinderella stories and other folk tales, so pick up your story, bring the bare bones, put them, the aharyam, the abhinaya, and other things, and then you describe them and unfold the story, but also remember to make it a live experience for them, which is a very, very important one. For that, you need to research. First, you need to find out who your audience is. Is it your grandchild? Is it the classroom? Is it the adult audience? So whom are you telling the story to? So they decide the way you're going to tell the story. This brings us to the question I asked, what is storytelling? Is it telling a story? We all know that it is not just that. So what is it? It's something more, because while you're telling a story, the story becomes important. In storytelling, the telling becomes important. How you tell, how you retell, a part of you comes out through the story. And a part of it, of the audience, they take it according to their own feelings and their own imagination. So how do we make that retelling? So you can say that it is an art, and there are small, small skills, and there are tools like this. Yeah, you have covered the Rajasthani traditional Indian tool that we have, which is a panel which unfolds on one side so beautifully, having the story of Ramayana, and on the other side you have stories of Krishna from Bhagavata. And it's a collaborative art. So you dig into your culture, you do the research, you see, are you teaching it to the fashion students or the history class or just fun? How do you bring it? So attire, aharyam, perhaps wear a bit of this thing and a turban, which makes it, a very typical Rajasthani art, and the art of the oral storyteller. Ayo re, ayo re, ayo re, ayo bolna. Ayo re, ayo re, ayo re, ayo bolna. You start the story like that, you're capturing the audience. You don't have to go back to that art, or you may not have a card with you, but you're placing a story in a particular country, in a particular region, bringing in that little cultural element. So how do we do that? In the classrooms, perhaps, again, these wonderful Katputlis, the wooden puppets, string puppets. These are small, small tools that you can use. And another favorite tool of mine to tell Ramayana. Who is this? Yeah, Lakshman, Rama's brother. And you have the vicious Ravana, the leather puppets of Andhra Pradesh, the beautiful shadow puppetry. So bring in a bit of culture, bring in a bit of music, bring in a bit of corn, like you said, the food elements, like you said, corn. Yeah, that's the staple diet of that region. So how do we make it, make the audience feel the now and the here through these elements, make them, transport them into that land, to that culture. And then how do you have to, rather we have to do that little bit of research. What interests me? What kind of a person I am? What are the tools I have? Do I have a strong enough voice? Otherwise, I need to work on my voice. Do I have a bit of foundation in music? Then yes, I will certainly sing better, not scare you people like the way I did just a few minutes ago. Yeah, but then it gives that rustic feeling where the kavad is sung by the artisans of the village, the painters who paint those beautiful pictures, and the carpenter who makes the panel so beautifully unfold and close and open. That itself is a wonderful narrative. So these are the elements that we will be bringing into storytelling, depending on what we are. Are we a dancer? We have seen in the Dhaka Festival or even Chennai Storytelling Festival for years together, we have seen storytellers bringing in the different art forms, the different healing stories from each culture. During COVID-19, it has really, really helped us all. We had to, I had this project called Story Quilt. Is there any story that helped you to deal and heal during those terrible months, which was so unexpected, which was so dramatic? Can we find another dramatic story like that ever in this century? I don't think so. So it can be a personal tale, it can be a folk tale, or whatever it is. How do we bring the page alive with us? And as it's a live art form, how do we make inclusive? How do we bring the audience into this? And here somebody said they have written a poem, and the art of words, it can be a poem, it can be a beautiful play, it can be a small story. So quickly, can you come up with your poem, please? Do we have time? How much more time do we have, Eric? 5 minutes?
Yes, we have 6 minutes.
Okay.
Well, actually, we have as much time as we want because there's no other workshop after this. It's just lunch. So
Okay.
so take your time.
So I think the individual storytellers also deserve a bit of, showcasing their own ideas. And I will now go a little slow and relax a bit and leave the stage to them. Yeah. So please introduce yourself and come up with your piece, short and brief. We have a very cute little audience here who has joined, Veena's granddaughter. Thank you for joining.
So Lavanya, I have a question, if I may ask, please.
Lavanya, you've gone on mute.
Yes, Jyoti, please go ahead and ask your question.
So I often wonder, there is a fine line between drama and storytelling. And these days, when I see the performance, somewhere I feel the subtle nuance of this oral storytelling is gone, and it's a lot of drama being brought into storytelling, right? So I have, I enjoy that. I'm not just saying, but I want clarity. I mean, what takes importance, or it is just a style of the teller? So if you...
Yeah. So a fantastic question, Jyoti, because that is what we have discussed, and I wanted to bring it to notice is that the story has scope. The story tells us something. It has something inherent in it. It calls out to us. But what it means to you, yeah, and who the audience is, that is very important, Jyoti. And again, what is there within you? Because oral storytelling is an art form helping the words playing a very, very important role and a tool. So how do we make a balance, as you rightly asked? So please keep the narration part in mind. As a storyteller, you're a narrator, you're a sutradhar. Again, the Indian cultural, vocabulary, you are the performer. You are the storyteller who's bringing everybody, all the characters, all the people together, and you're calling the shots. Don't forget that. Don't give that place to anybody else. Yeah, because you need to have the control. You're telling the story. So how do you, when somebody is going to take away that part? Yeah. So that's again important. And there you have to set a context. Knowing really well, storytelling helps you to go deep into your own self. Because there is music, not necessarily the singing, the melody of words, the rhythm, the rhyme. Yeah. How does that play an important role? So those pauses, those softness in the voice, and the power in the voice when it is required. So you have all these things which would make you the storyteller, and you are the performer there. You can make the dancer come and dance. You can make the singer come and sing. You can become everything, but remember that you are first the storyteller. And a storyteller's role is very, very clear to bring the story, as Eric said, from the beginning through the middle. The journey is to the end. And how do we navigate it? With metaphors. If language is your tool, if you are a spoken word artist like Rachel and Eric, they have their own ways of using the vocabulary so beautifully. So what do we believe in? What do we connect with? What does the audience want? Yeah, these are the things that we need to keep in our mind while working on the actual retelling. With my students, that's what I say, pick up a story, break them into bare bones. Just keep adding a little bit of, flesh, blood, skin, attire, everything, and make it very beautiful and, typical to a cultural context. Yeah. But then your role doesn't end there. You do a bit of research. Like Sudha said, stories are generally broadly divided into history, heritage, and heirloom. Heirloom is something like, we can call it again, people, places, and possessions. What do we have? For instance, today I'm here as a storyteller, bringing in the 3 states that are very close to my heart. This is the ikat blouse that I'm wearing from Andhra Pradesh, yeah? And this is the Kusapalli of Orissa, where my in-laws are from. And this is the beautiful artwork of the artisans who are available in different places where I appreciate. So I want to bring all these small, small things, maybe because I can't sing, maybe because I can't dance or whatever it is, but I have pleasure in showcasing these small cultural elements through which I leave you with the story beyond the page. So from the page, the story has come out. It has come through you. So you choose, how do you want to fly your kite? How do you want to make your kite? Single color? Colorful one like a rainbow? You decide whether you want to use metaphors, music, movement, mimicry, mime. Yeah, whatever is your strong point. If that is not that, again, as I said, the story calls out, it has a huge scope. Please, 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 when you decide on a story, just look at the story, the pictures if possible. Then close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Because the science, whether it's psychology, education, or whatever it is, tells us that the brain learns through patterns and pictures. Forget about the language, be it Greek, German, Telugu, Tamil, and Hindi, or whatever it is. It just picks up the pictures, the patterns, the imageries. So if you're even using just the spoken word, be sure that your words, the vocabulary, have the full potential where you're transferring the images from your head, from the page, from the storytellers, the actual original storyteller's voice. Are you carrying it there? Or you can always say, I'm inspired by it. And this is the source of my story. Please, as storytellers, let us not forget to give credit to the original source and call it a retelling. That's a beautiful word for me. Storytelling, just bring the story a little down and put the retelling on top. You're retelling it. That which is there, even if it's your own story, it's been there in your head. It's been there in your heart as an emotion. So you're retelling it. Please focus on the retelling. Pick up what the story wants, what it is calling out. Take those elements. Use words if you can't do them in, display it as an art form. Each one has its strength. Find your strength. Find your calling. It may not be your strength, but you just enjoy saying it in a particular way. And the audience inspires you. And the story just takes different turns and twists when you have a live audience looking at them. If someone cuts it like this and somebody else cuts it, cha, 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 then take one small leaf out of that, bring a little bit of humor. Oh, this person, in his absent-mindedness, he forgot that he was chopping, the crops. And so it went like this up. Thankfully, there was no one nearby. So it's all these small, small tricks that you play. Yeah. And then many times in the libraries and classrooms, you have these little smart ones. Miss, I know this story. I know what happens next. And I tell them, oh yeah, I will definitely listen to you. But in my story, there is this little fellow who has come all the way from Dubai. the desert play. And let us see what he has to do to the story. So something like that, this presence of mind, these are the tools of us storytellers who can make the page, the story in the page come alive as a performance. And yeah, one last, has your question been answered? Has been answered, Jyoti?
Thank you so much, Lavanya. More than that. I'm so happy you brought about so many things. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's my pleasure that you have asked the right question. So anybody who would like to quickly showcase your piece of poem or whatever it is, just a short one, even 4 lines would speak so much, volumes of your talent. Yeah. It's 12:05. So
I don't have anything to showcase, but I just wanted to also add to your response to Jyoti that, there's no formula. I have seen choreographed, beautiful storytelling, tandem, my mentors, they're called Ethnotech. Just go online and look for them. They're just beautifully performed. It's like theater, but they are very, very well known and really appreciated because they do such a great job and they connect with you. On the other hand, I've seen storytellers who don't even use gestures, who are, in front of Zoom, especially, they're very still, but they're magical. So you see the whole, contrast, and it all goes. I think storytelling is a big umbrella. So you can do your thing as long as you're able to connect with the audience and they can resonate with you.
Perfect, Rupa, where it's a huge landscape, a beautiful landscape where you can take your colors, your brushes, your own images, your own imageries, and just start painting them. Only thing is, you need to have this guidance, as Rupa said, who your audience is, what the planning is. In the beginning, I told you there is this what, where, when, how, and why you're telling the story. So in her case, it was very clear that it is an ethnographic context. There is an academic component where you can beautifully work, and they have researched for months together. I know, Rupa, what hard work she has put in, and they had, I think, 5 storytellers tell the stories of different people. So even at a normal storyteller's level, when I said normal, I'm not belittling anybody, but if you're telling it even to your own grandchild or one single kid, sometimes you announce a storytelling event and there are hardly 2 people there, or even sometimes there may not be anybody. It's okay, just be there. Just be there through the timings that you have announced. Let there be 1 kid, it's okay. Otherwise, call the staff, call the managers, bring them in, tell your story. Okay, so it's all about doing your research. As I said, as a storyteller, when we find the story from the page, before bringing it on to the stage, the next step would be the research. There again, keep these questions. Why am I telling the story? What does it tell me? And what do I want to tell? Where is it? Is it happening in a school, in a public space, in a academic context? Is it happening in the classroom, or at a temple, or a beautiful birthday party, or an event, a marriage, or whatever it could be, or a Valentine's Day function as well? So ask these questions and ask the age group of the audience. Many a time it is a mixed audience. When there are kids, there are elders, parents, grandparents. And when you announce that it is for the adult audience, 16 or 18 plus, children are not allowed. So decide who your audience is. Have clarity. If somebody else has asked you, invited you to tell the story, have these points clear. The time. That's very, very important, because as storytellers, we also have this thing to get carried away, because stories are so beautiful. They just fly in the air like that, and we have to bring them back and tight. So keep the time in mind. So these are the guiding factors. And then do your research, whether for whichever person it is. What are the different versions of this story? Who has told this story? If I would, or any other storyteller has told it differently in some other place, please acknowledge that you have heard it there. You found it very, very interesting, and you're trying your own take on it. So these are the small things, and I don't have to tell you these nitty-gritties, but they are very, very important. Remember history, heritage, and heirloom. Objectify the story. If you have the lampshade behind Rupa, I'm sure it has a story to tell, right? So like that, for instance, this piece, the neck piece has a story, the sari says story. And then whatever, your attire, your language, your culture. So please keep all these things in mind. And the main thing is enjoy the show. Enjoy the process. And then things will fall in place. Realize that storytelling and stories have this power. They kind of, take it forward. Just enjoy the process, but then have a plan, please. Because Eric did have a plan. Renu was to do the workshop today, facilitate. But in last moment, she had some issues. She could not conduct the workshop. Eric came to me. So planning is very, very important. Because once it doesn't, plan A doesn't work, plan B comes in. Bring in another storyteller. Have that. See, these are the things. You have plan A, plan B, plan C, just like a corporate or whatever. These are the tools that we too need. Research, have the outline, have the learning outcome, have the methodology in place. Find your audience, who they are, what you want to tell, and how you want to tell. The main thing is enjoy the process and spread the joy. That will take care. Thank you so much, Eric, for this wonderful opportunity. I believe in the power of stories and in the power of destiny and in the power of the cosmos. So thanks for letting me into this workshop constellation, if I might call it so. It's been a wonderful experience for me. Just bringing in and exchanging ideas and looking at the wonderful storytellers across borders, their own knowledge, and their
Thank you so
expertise.
much. It's been very generous of you to share all of your knowledge about storytelling. Thank you.
Thanks, it's my pleasure. So thank you all for joining in on a Sunday morning or evening or night, whatever. I know this time is very, very precious, but I know that you also feel that stories are precious and we as storytellers are precious too. Yeah, so let's enjoy the game. Thank you.